Of all the tarnished to walk the lands between, none have been as utterly vile and repulsive as the loathsome Dung-Eater. Upon first interacting with this cretin, there's no doubt that he was a ruthless murderer who thought little of humanity, and sought only to defile mankind for generations to come, eventually desecrating the Golden Order in the process. However, one question always came to mind. How did he earn his namesake? In this video, we will answer that very question and come to a definitive answer as to why this monster came to be known as the Dung-Eater, and describe exactly what he does when he defiles his victims. We first encounter this irreverent character sitting in the library of the Round Table Hold. He refused to engage in conversation until the Tarnished possessed a seedbed curse. If we analyze the item description, we learn that the seedbed curse was a curse grown on a corpse killed and defiled by the Dung-Eater, a tender pox afflicted with omen horns. The Dung-Eater cultivates the seedbed curse on corpses. By doing so, he prevents dead souls returning to the Erdtree, leaving them forever cursed, one of the most loathsome things found in the lands between. It's interesting to note that when the Dung-Eater defiled corpses, he was upsetting the alleged natural order of things as established by the Greater Will, and preventing the souls of the deceased from making passage to the Erdtree, but more on this later. The Omen set reveals that despite its grotesque design, the Dung-Eater did not suffer from the Omen affliction. He simply had the heart to match. In essence, although his armor was fashioned to resemble an Omen whose horns had been shaven down, he himself was not an Omen, but was hellbent on cursing everyone in the lands between. It's almost as if his ultimate goal was to create a dystopian society where all would be equal due to their inherent Omen-cursed nature. Perhaps in this world, where the Golden Order and influence of the Greater Will ceased to exist, the Omen would be revered as blessed rather than cursed, as evidenced by the mending rune of the Fell Curse. If we turn to his weapon of choice, the Sword of Milos, it provides some interesting details that may or may not tie in directly to the Dung-Eater's past. The item description reads, "Sinister greatsword fashioned from a giant's backbone, meets out wounds like a lopsided saw blade, and restores some FP upon defeating an enemy." Milos was undersized for a giant and was viewed as sullied and terribly grotesque. This serrated sword seems to hint towards the possibility that the Dung-Eater may in fact be Milos. If this were true, the careful choice of words used to describe him could definitely shape one into believing that they were filthy and undesirable, possibly even leading one to disown their giant heritage and claim to belong to a group of outcasts that were shunned by society. Regardless of his motivations, the Dung-Eater's hunger would not be satiated until the Order itself was defiled by his sullied hands. Which leads us to the most intriguing and disturbing finding of all. In order to understand how the Dung-Eater got his name, we must first turn to Japanese folklore. During the Edo period, a specific type of yokai, known as the kappa, were infamous for consuming a victim's shirikodama. The shirikodama, literally translated as small anus ball, is a mythical ball nestled inside the anus that is said to contain the human soul. According to legend, the kappa sought out the shirikodama of any who ventured into their ponds or rivers and would eagerly consume them as delicacies, killing the human in the process. If we return to the lands between and analyze one of the Dung-Eater's victims, it's evident that the majority of the blood loss was localized between the thighs, which indicated the wound was inflicted in the nether region. Not only that, but the victim's hands were tied and every single corpse bearing the seedbed curse was bound to a chair, which allowed for easy access. That's right, the Dung-Eater defiled his victims by extracting their shirikodama and devouring it, consuming their souls in the process and preventing their return to the Erdtree. With each vulgar act, the Dung-Eater would grow in power and progress one step closer to his grotesque goal. In the end, the undersized giant turned to a life of scatological desecration in order to embrace his undesirable existence. The Dung-Eater would never know true peace or happiness, for he sought only to spread his reviled curse until each and every being would form into the leaking pustules of his hatred, just like the comment section. And that's all for this video. Until next time, it's the Inhuman one signing out.